Kind of like an example pinning class for this guy right here. Now, I was kind of being cheeky when I said small. This is the largest tiger beetle kind of genus in the world, and they're called Manticora beetles. And it's because they're quite ridiculous looking. Let me show you when I can get up close here. So this is Manticora scabra. This is a South African, East African tiger beetle. That's in the family Cincillidae, which are about 2,600 strong or so. These are all predaceous beetles. Most of them can fly, but the Manticora beetles in this genus, Manticora, do not fly. They're all black. They're all nocturnal. They have massive jaws. They're the largest tiger beetles in the world as far as getting to 5 centimeters. Over 6 centimeters is probably record breaking for these guys, getting near 6.5 centimeters. So this one is probably close to 5. So he's not a record breaking beetle by any means, not museum or anything, but you still get a sense of how just insane these creatures are. So this is a male Manticora beetle. Now out of the, 900,000 species of beetles in the world, once you get to predaceous beetles, those families are pretty small. There's weevils, right? Like everyone's favorite little snout beetles. They have hundreds of thousands of species. These guys only get a couple, 2,600 is probably what they're confident at in around 2005 when they try to catalog how many they've found. We got lots of them in here in the southwest of the United States. Real pretty, real small, green, blue, speckled, spotted. They fly really fast. They run real fast. These guys are kind of the black sheep of the whole tiger beetle family. No flight, giant. They do not run near as fast as small tiger beetles. Some tiger beetles can, clips 300 body lengths just in seconds. They're like the fastest terrestrial animal on the planet as far as their body size goes. If a human was the same size or could run the same speed and keep its size as a tiger beetle, a human could go about 600 miles per hour. It'd be that many of its own body lengths in seconds, and so it's not okay how fast they move. One thing you might be noticing on these beetles here is this is their mandible. This is what's going to lock in their prey. You can see a stark asymmetry here with this giant right hook, whereas this side of the mandible kind of extends out and has a smaller hook. This kind of exaggerated jaw for the male is to help hold the female during copulation. Females have much more symmetrical jaws. They look a little bit more like you would expect. But this crazy asymmetry on these beetles is kind of to help them clasp and get hold. And obviously that's going to have an advantage in predation too when they're hunting. Their eyes are high up. All of these beetles are black. They're kind of hard to see where their ocelli are, but this is their compound eye. It's high up. And so that's going to give them access to a better type of depth perception when they're hunting prey. Most beetles' eyes are kind of in line with their bottom jaw. They hang pretty low. They just want to see things up and down. But these guys are hunters, and so they're going to have a little bit more unique anatomy than your typical scarab. They have a small thorax, a huge abdomen, and I'll get to that in a second. And then their massive head, where all the little jaw muscles are going to be, pivots on this cylindrical thorax that's pretty small. And so they have a huge range of motion. And obviously these huge jaws. And these tiny little stick legs, which are just comical for a beetle. Not a record for jaws. Stag beetles, which are not predaceous, which mostly nectivores and eat fruit and other sweet things, they have the largest record for jaw to body ratio in the world. That being the Charles Darwin beetle. But these guys, their jaws are menacing. They're actually not just for fighting, they're for predation. So they have lots of spikes. They're serrated. And then right underneath, right above my fingernail there, you can see 2 more little spike outs. That's going to grab the prey, move it in. These jaws are going to destroy the prey. These animals are big enough and strong enough that they will take down vertebrates that are small, not just invertebrates. And when it comes to this ridiculous walnut-looking body, this just black hard shell, you can still see where the elytra would be. It is fused. They are flightless now. It's an evolutionary adaptation. And you can kind of see where all the seams would be that you would find typical on any insect or beetle that has wings, is that these hard wing cases, or the top pair of wings, kind of would connect. So what has happened here, which is common with a lot of desert beetles, not just these large tiger beetles, but tenebrids, darkling beetles, often will have fused elytra too, some weevils even. And the purpose for that is several adaptational benefits. So what this does for them, not only does it give them protection from predators, because it's a nice hard case that is a little bit more armored than, say, a light wing case made for flying. It has a void in it because it is just fused together. This void is going to create an air pocket where there are vestigial wings underneath, which are useless, just sit there and probably recede. But that air is going to help for insulation, which is going to help with conservation of energy and moisture. Although they are nocturnal, they're still going to depend heavily on moisture, especially in East Africa, South Africa. They are desert hunters, grassland hunters. And so anytime you can be more efficient, you have an advantage. And so the spindly little black beetle is 100% a ground predator. And I think is one of the crazier looking animals and worthy of the name Manticora. They're just a scary face, scary big beetle. Kind of looks like a Brazil nut. And so what I'm going to do is just pin them real fast after that nice little exposition. All right. So I hydrated this specimen overnight. This particular specimen is about 3 years old and it has just been stored as a dried specimen in my freezer. So of course he's going to be brittle, very dehydrated, very crispy. And so I put him in a humidifier overnight. That relaxes all the muscles, the tissues that can connect the exoskeleton together, which makes him pliable and it's easier to articulate without breaking. So I'm going to go ahead and put some pressure on the abdomen here because this is the largest part of this one's body. I'm going to pin him down. So now he's not going to swivel too much. Again, a lot of beetles are very, very similar as far as pinning goes. I always try to find an anchor point. I like to keep the legs out and up if I can help it. And one tip I usually stress every time I do a pinning is I don't stab the insect. I make my pins cross like this, and then I push down on the material or the body part, and so that way I can kind of control where it moves. And so I make a little A-frame above, and so I don't want to go underneath the leg and make the X or the A-frame. I want the tip, the zenith of the A, to be holding the specimen down, because when they dry they want to collapse again. And so I want to prevent any kind of collapse. I want pins on both sides of the leg. And then you can always kind of go back and worry about symmetry, or if you want the legs up in like a running position. Scientific, like museum or research pinning, is a lot different than what I do. What I do is more of the aesthetic pinning. Sometimes people call it butterfly positioning, because I just kind of put everything outside, show you all the parts, all the bits if I can help it. Sometimes I'll put a piece of foam underneath, lift all the legs up like it's moving and running, and I'll put it in like an open air 3-dimensional display, not just a shadow box. So I'll have it running on like a skull or something. Scientific pinning is about classification and about organization and about saving space. You can find entomology drawers in museums with thousands of specimens in them, and they don't have time for anything. They're going to pin it out. They're going to make sure you can see what helps it identify it, and then they're going to have the information underneath it on a piece of paper: where it was found, longitude, latitude, date, the person who discovered it, the country, the region, what they think it is, if there needs further research, things like that. I do all the labeling, post pinning, post spreading. I make a label for my frames, so I don't really worry about space. Whatever makes the animal look impressive to me is how I'm going to try to frame it later. And so this guy's tiny little antenna's got tons of little segments. They're very delicate. In fact, it was already broken when I pulled it out of the packaging. So what I'm going to do here is just open his jaw up a little bit and straighten his head, so you can see a little bit more about this asymmetry on that jaw. That big right hook kind of laps over, and so you can see when that enters the body of prey, it's pretty much locked in like a bear trap. There's not much it can do. And that's basically it. It's pretty quick. What I want to do is kind of maybe pick one leg up a little bit, straighten it, lower this leg a little bit, maybe make it match the other one. And all art is kind of push-pull. You get it to where you like it, then it's done when you say so, But I do want a nice representation of this beetle. Their calling card is that they're very fast runners. They're even the slower, larger tiger beetle, the Manticora, it's going to be substantially faster than most of like what you see out here, like common scarabs and darkling beetles that kind of just trudge around on trails, fly around and bounce around on the ground. June bugs, things like that. They're not very good at running. They're made for kind of burrowing and then flying and grabbing onto fruit. So he's got very long legs for his body. He's almost spider-like, with a giant abdomen, vicious front face, and then all of this here, all these spindly legs. But another thing, like all beetles, all insects here, even dragonflies, anything is going to end in two little tarsal claws. It's going to have your femur, your tibia, your tarses, your tarsal claws, and that's just very common between all this whole group of animals here. And so mandible, you're going to have your thorax, your abdomen, your cephala, your head. 2 compound eyes. Some beetles do have 4 compound eyes. It's pretty cool, but not very many. And so your 3 major body segments, your 6 legs, and that's pretty much a classic beetle turned into a Greek mythological monster. Mm-hmm. Now, the earliest tiger beetles are probably, I think, found in China, fossil record, early Cretaceous, 115, 120 million years ago. So when you find a fossil, you have a pretty good start of when these things were popular, right? Because it's hard to make a fossil. It's hard to find an animal that dies in sandstone real quickly where it can be preserved. At least beetles have hard shells, so insect fossils are pretty common. The earliest they would consider a tiger beetle is probably early Cretaceous. And within 5-10 million years, you'll find other tiger beetle fossils in South America, Africa, things like that. So once this design kind of appeared on the scene, it was successful, and it stayed successful due to efficiency. And that's it. I mean, that's about as much as I can say on this one particular beetle. This is a winning design as far as animals are concerned. As old as most dinosaurs. That's pretty neat. Still running around being crazy. And I appreciate you guys for stopping in. Have a good one.